Everybody, we are live. This is Gila Glassberg, registered dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor, and I am taking over OK Clarity's page right now on Instagram. And tonight we are going to be talking about the satisfaction factor of food. So just to recap, I am a registered dietitian and I'm trained in intuitive eating. Intuitive eating has 10 principles. So far, we have covered just an introduction to intuitive eating. We've talked about rejecting the diet mentality, just to remember that we're always constantly working on rejecting diet mentality. We live in 2023. I don't know about you, but everyone around me talks about dieting and that's not healthy and that's healthy and good and bad and all that stuff. It's like, it's just a part of the fabric of our culture. So we're actively working to reject diet mentality, not because we don't think that there are certain foods that are good for us or that movement isn't good for us, but we have to look at a whole person. And those are just two aspects of health, what we eat and how we move. So, and also just remembering that like skinny doesn't equal healthy. Like you can't look at somebody and decide that they're healthy or not. So that's principle one, reject the diet mentality. Then we talked about honoring your hunger and respecting your fullness. So now we're moving on to the satisfaction factor of food. So think about it for a second. God, Hashem, made it that we have to eat in order to live, right? But he also made it pleasurable. We enjoy eating. It tastes good. And the reason why a lot of times when we eat is because we like the pleasure of food. But he also made us have to breathe, but that doesn't necessarily give us pleasure. I mean, it would probably hurt if we couldn't breathe, but it's not like we're getting pleasure from breathing. So the way that God or Hashem made your body is that you'll start to get a hunger cue at around the 2 or 3 hour mark, and then you'll begin eating. And as you're eating, if you're paying attention or you're not, things aren't getting in the way of hunger and fullness, you'll start to notice that fullness starts. It's more like the absence of hunger starts to emerge, and then you become full. And it's on a spectrum, like we said last week, 0 to 10. So it's not like you're all of a sudden hungry and you're all of a sudden full. Oftentimes you move down the scale, like you're 5, which is neutral, then you're 4, which is a little hungry, 3, 2, 1, 0, which is ravenous. And then on the other side, there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is like a little bit hungry, a little bit full, then comfortably full, then a little too full, then nauseous, right? So satisfaction and fullness aren't really the same thing. So tonight we're kind of pulling apart what is satisfaction and definitely trying to understand that it's really not the same thing as fullness. So you could think about that for a second. You could be physically full and completely not satisfied. So the example that I often give is like what I hear a lot from my clients who are chronic dieters is that they were on, let's say, on specific diets where they were only allowed to eat certain foods at certain times. So it's mealtime. They're starving. They want to eat everything on the plate, even if they don't like it, and they finish eating it, and they're not satisfied. They might be physically full, but they're still looking for something crunchy or something salty, something sweet, and then they might end up eating that thing anyways. So that's how you could kind of think about it. Like fullness and satisfaction are totally not the same thing. And you could also be satisfied and not full. So we here in America kind of don't pay so much attention to the satisfaction factor of food. We're either like dieting or maybe binging, which is not satisfying at all, or maybe we're too busy to even notice that we're eating. So the more that you actually enjoy your food, the less you'll eat. That's what the research shows. You could think about it, and I'll give an example. And the better you feel and the less you're thinking about food and the more it keeps you full. Those are all really good benefits. But anyways, when you derive pleasure from something that you're doing anyways and you're being mindful and you're paying attention to it, of course, you're going to get more pleasure from it. So this is an example that I give a lot. Before, I didn't always practice intuitive eating. And when I was new to it, I had this experience that I really feel like helps explain satisfaction. And you could comment if you understand what I'm saying. So it was Hanukkah, and I remember going to a Hanukkah party, and I remember taking a latke on my plate, a potato pancake, and it was really soggy, and it wasn't salted well. I'm a foodie, so you know that right when you take something off of the pan, you have to let the oil drain out, and you also have to add salt right away. It helps absorb the salt. So it was like soggy, not salted, didn't taste good. And of course, it's very, very high calorie. Like you assume, oh, high calorie is going to taste good. And it just wasn't good. It didn't taste good. It wasn't satisfying. And I remember thinking, why can't I stop eating this? Like I just kept eating latkes. Like maybe I had 3 or 4. And it wasn't even good. Why did I do that? And then the next night I went to another Hanukkah party, and I walked into the Hanukkah party and I walked right into the kitchen, and whoever it was, I don't even remember, was making fresh latkes out of the pan and gave me one on my plate, salted it right away, and it tasted so good. And I remember, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat. I remember thinking like, whoa, this is so good. I was paying attention to the texture and the flavor, and it was so yummy. And I stopped after like one latke. I was totally satisfied. So why on the first night I ate so many latkes, and on the second night I ate one latke? Because when you're satisfied and you're mindful, that's a big piece of satisfaction, and you're paying attention to the taste and the texture and the smell and the color, that's going to enhance your satisfaction, and that might help you to stop eating when you're full, because you're not only full, you're also satisfied. Another example that I give a lot is from Elise Resch, one of the authors of Intuitive Eating. When I was taking the training, she gave the example of Dove chocolate. Now, I don't really like chocolate. It's not my thing, but I think she explained it well. That she was doing this exercise with the satisfaction factor of food, and she realized that she really wanted a piece of chocolate. So she ate one piece very slowly, very mindfully, paid attention to it, and it was delicious. And she noticed the creaminess, and she noticed the smoothness, and however else you would describe chocolate. It's not so much my thing. And then she's like, I want another one. So she took another one, and she also loved it. So she went for a third, and she remembers thinking like the third bite kind of tasted like a little bit plasticky, a little bit nauseating, a little bit too rich. And she's like, oh, I'm satisfied. I don't know if anyone listening could relate to that, but I think that for me, that was like very eye-opening, that fullness and satisfaction aren't the same thing. You're not really full from 3 pieces of chocolate, but you are maybe satisfied, and everybody's different. So now I'm going to just read the questions. I think that what I'm saying is going to answer all the questions. So, and don't forget to send in your questions. So here are the questions. Do I need to enjoy every single thing I eat, or is it okay to eat something just because of the health benefits? How does intuitive eating affect the emotional satisfaction derived from food? How does intuitive eating make me more satisfied? So, okay, I see your question. I hope that this is going to help. So, when I am doing this with clients, I will help them come up with what they actually really want to eat. And remember, one of the reasons why you might not know what you want to eat is because you've been dieting for so long, and dieting has kind of dictated to you, like, this food is good, this food is bad, this food is healthy, this food is not. So let's say, like, you're being good, you might convince yourself that, like, you really like cottage cheese, and you really like apples, and you really like rice cake. And you eat them, or you eat, let's say you want something sweet and creamy, so you go to your freezer and you take out diet ice cream and you eat the whole thing, and then after you eat it, you're like, that was so not rich, and that was so had a weird taste, and then you end up eating the other one anyways because you weren't satisfied, right? So those again, fullness and satisfaction are totally different things. So what I do with clients, and you could do it right now if you want, and if this is helpful, is that I have them ask themselves specific satisfaction questions regarding food. And you could do this now, even if you want. If you didn't eat dinner yet, that would be good. Try it when you're not too hungry and not too full, and think about what you really, really, really want to eat. So first you want to think about like the sensory. So like the taste, salty, sweet, rich, buttery, or the texture. Do you want something crunchy? Do you want something smooth? And what about the temperature of food? Do you want something cold or something hot? And I always say this, that some people are like, they really care about the temperature of their food. Like, I know some people who don't want to eat food unless it's piping hot, or a bowl of soup, they only want piping hot. Some people don't really care. They'll eat it room temp. Some people drink cold coffee in the summer and hot coffee in the winter. Some people drink hot coffee all year round, and some people drink cold coffee all year round. I happen to drink hot in the winter and cold in the summer, but when I tell this to clients, they're like, oh, I'm iced coffee girl all year round, or I need to have hot coffee. It's like what sets the tone of my day. So that's something important to think about. Or like, am I in the mood of a soup, or am I in the mood of a salad or a yogurt or a smoothie or something? Because those are totally different temperatures. And you also want to think about, you also really, really want to think about, this is piggybacking off of hunger and fullness, how hungry you are and how full you want to be. So I think this is going to help answer the question that you asked. I'm still not clear what the difference is between recognizing your hunger cues and feeling full. Okay, a little confused. So like I said last week, that if you try to practice your hunger cues, you'll get the hang of it. So like checking in every 2 to 3 hours, seeing if you're getting any direct cue from your body. Are you feeling an emptiness in your stomach? Are you feeling a headache? Are you feeling like you're hungry, angry, you're irritable? Are you feeling more tired? Everyone has different hunger cues, and you could feel different hunger cues based on how hungry and full you are, right? So here's an example. Some people do this when they're dieting. Like, you're going to go to a fancy restaurant and you have unlimited access to really yummy food. So you're like, I'm just not going to eat the whole day. I don't know. I would never be able to do that. I'd be starving. But I know some people do that. So they get to the restaurant and they're so excited and they're eating all the bread from the table. They're starving. They're ravenous. They're filling up their plate. They're not even really paying attention to what they're eating or if they like it. And then they get to this place of like really uncomfortable fullness. And maybe in the moment it feels satisfying to eat whatever you want, but afterwards you don't feel satisfied. You feel really uncomfortable, right? And this is a practice. There's a point where you're satisfied and full, and then when you're like over full and really uncomfortable. So for example, if you're going out to eat with your spouse at 6 o'clock and now it's 5 o'clock and you're a little bit hungry, if you go to your fridge and take out like what you're maybe giving to the other people in your house and you make yourself a plate of like schnitzel and broccoli and sweet potatoes right before your meal, then you're not going to really be so satisfied at the restaurant, even though that might feel satisfying because that's what you want. An hour later, you're not going to feel satisfied because you're not really hungry. So you might want to have like a half a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, rice cakes and cheese, an apple and peanut butter, something that could hold you over for an hour so you're not in a bad mood, snapping at people and going into the restaurant too hungry. But you know that you're trying to plan your hunger fullness. But it's not a perfect science, right? Like if you're, let's say, here's another example on that, like part of that example is like, let's say you're going to a Broadway play and it's 5 o'clock and you're not really hungry and you're not really full, but you're not going to be able to eat for 3 hours. And the last time you ate was 3 hours ago. So it's probably a good idea, if you can, to eat something that doesn't make you nauseous or bloated or feeling uncomfortable, but it holds you over till after the play or after the test or after the time that you're not able to eat. I think that if you start to practice this, like honoring your hunger, respecting your fullness, getting in touch with your hunger fullness cues, you might understand more, that you might be more in touch with your natural rhythm of hunger and fullness, and then you'll be able to plan it better so that your satisfaction is better. But that's just a side note. So of course, it's not a perfect science. Sometimes you're just going to eat because everybody else is eating, and that's okay. Sometimes you're going to eat because it just looks really, really yummy, and you might get too full, but you're not. There's no like perfect intuitive eating, but you might just be less satisfied because you're a little bit more full. The point is really not to like be obsessive about this. The point is to try to bring more satisfaction to your food, to bring more mindfulness, to be more grounded, to pay attention to the bites and the textures and the smells, because that really helps you increase your satisfaction, and that really helps with a lot of other things like not binging and not using and not just eating because it's there, because once you really pay attention to what you like, you will enjoy your food so much more. So those are things to ask yourself, and if anybody wants to, they can think about it right now. Like I do this a lot, and I have done this a lot with myself, and now I kind of know, like most days, like for lunch, I like having like a grilled cheese, or I like having eggs, or I like having rice cakes and cheese and something else, bananas, yogurts. Sometimes I get sick of that, so I started to buy like frozen falafels, or I started going to Trader Joe's and getting those cauliflower pancakes and making sunny side over. And I know that like at a certain point in my day, I'm going to want something like a little crunchy, a little bit, maybe something cold, maybe something hot. And I kind of know that. I plan for it. I try to grocery shop for it. Is it a perfect science? No. Sometimes I'm like going out with my friends and maybe I'll get a salad and I wasn't planning on eating it, but when I go to the restaurant, I feel like I'm in the mood for a salad. So again, there's no perfect science. Like I just think that practicing this is going to help you get in touch with it. So like right now, if you're about to eat dinner and you don't know what you're having for dinner, and you have access to like, let's say a restaurant, or you have access to a grocery store, and you can make yourself really what you're in the mood of, you could think like, do I want something sweet? Do I want something salty? Do I want something that's crunchy, right? So like something crunchy might be schnitzel, something crunchy might be salad, and you could think about that. Do I want something smooth? That could be soup, or that could be a yogurt. Like everybody's different. How much time do you think will lapse from this eating experience to the next? Do I want to make myself a bigger plate or a smaller plate? Do I want something more filling or less filling? And the more you pay attention to that, the more you'll see that you're going to increase your satisfaction. Of course, this has to be done mindfully, but like there's no pressure with intuitive eating. It's supposed to help you. So if you can't do this every day and every meal, which I don't recommend, try it once this week. Just see if you could get in touch with what you actually want and give it to yourself, and notice the difference that you're not either binging or thinking about food more than you want to, or you just really enjoyed the food better. So that's one part of the satisfaction. But then there's like a whole other part that's your eating environment. So this is true for many people, and I speak about it with a lot of clients, that your eating environment very much affects your satisfaction. So if you're eating while you're on the phone or you're distracted, you probably aren't getting as much pleasure out of your food. And a good example of that is like if you've ever been at the movies and you ordered popcorn and you're eating and watching, and then all of a sudden you notice you're scraping the bottom of the popcorn thing, you're like, what? I just ate this whole thing? Like I wasn't even I didn't even taste the popcorn, right? So that's not satisfying. And a lot of times you might even be like, I'm not even full from that popcorn, even though I ate a whole thing, because I wasn't even tasting it or paying attention to it. That could definitely happen. That like if you're not paying attention, then you're just continue to eat, and you don't even taste the food, and you don't even get that fullness cue because you're totally out to lunch. No pun intended. So it's important that, of course, you're not always going to have no distraction at your meals, but when you can control it and you want to control it, I think that's really going to add to it. A lot of people don't enjoy their meals when the table is messy or there's a lot of clutter around. That gives them this sense of like out of controlness or uneasiness. And an easy way to fix that is to try to declutter your table or to clean up before you eat. Of course, you can't always do that, but even like in a small way, if you're eating at a desk that's very, very cluttered, can you not just like eat on the mess, or could you like even turn your back from the mess and just pay attention to your eating so that you can get more satisfaction from eating. Another thing is like just having like heart to heart or like painful conversations during mealtime, having a conversation that you need to have with somebody and you happen to be eating. It's probably not a good idea, because you are going to start to associate like eating with negative experiences, or like talking to your kids about something in the middle of dinner is not such a good idea if it's like serious, because then they're going to start experiencing uncomfortable feelings, and it's in the middle of their eating experience, which is just going to take away from the eating experience. And I think that it's like a kindness that God did, that he made food good, because when I'm eating a meal now and it tastes so good and it's so yummy and I really like it and I want to keep eating it even past fullness, I now think to myself, like, I'll get hungry again in 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll enjoy it more and I'll try to save it for later. Of course, I don't always do that, but when I can do that, I will. And I notice that I just really enjoy the eating experience more, and I enjoy my food more, and I feel better. I feel more in touch with myself. I pick the foods that I like. So like, if you're going into a room, like you're going to a wedding and there's all different types of food, or you're going anywhere, there's a simcha and there's all different types of food. Whereas you might have just walked in and been like assessing. A lot of people do this. When you're on a diet, you're assessing, what could I have, even though you don't like it? Can I have the salad? Can I have the brown rice sushi? Can I have the salmon? Things that you don't like or definitely aren't in the mood of, and you have, and then you're just feeling like, okay, whatever, I'm just eating the cheesecake because this is not satisfying me. And on the opposite side, let's say you're no longer dieting and now you might be binging, or now you just might feel out of control with food. So you walk in and you think, what has the most amount of calories, or what have I not eaten in a really long time? And maybe you're not even hungry and you're like, okay, I'm just going to have cheesecake and pizza and fried mac and cheese balls. And you're like, why did I just eat that? I feel so gross. Or you're not even paying attention and you're just like, you feel like a sense of freedom even though you feel gross because you just ate foods that you weren't even in the mood of, or maybe you don't even like. So that's how dieting really messes with your hunger and your fullness and your satisfaction, because it makes you really confused about what you want to eat, when you want to eat, how you want to eat. And it doesn't have to be like that. And that's why I think this is such a powerful principle, because it makes the whole eating experience and the whole relationship with food so much better. Is it really hard? Yeah, it's really hard if you've been feeling a lot of guilt about your eating, or a lot of anger, resentment, or you just don't feel good in your body in general, or you don't like the way that you're inhaling food all the time because you're always restricting. That's for sure going to obviously mess with your relationship with food and mess with the way that you really want to be eating. So this is a really, I think, important principle to work on. And just because I already gave the lives on reject diet mentality, honor your hunger, and respect your fullness. And now we're talking about satisfaction. I just want you to realize that it's hard to work on these things, especially if you've been dieting for forever. So don't go too fast. Like, don't be like, okay, I learned hunger and fullness last week. Now I'm jumping right to satisfaction. They all kind of like work together. So like once you get the hunger fullness down, you might feel like more satisfied from your food. And then the question is, can you eat some foods just for the health benefits? That was one of the questions. So one of the principles of intuitive eating is honor your health with gentle nutrition. And that's the last principle. And that principle is the last, so that you don't just pick up the intuitive eating book and you're like, hey, here's another diet, I'm doing intuitive eating. Nutrition is a really important part of intuitive eating, but it's specifically at the end, because it's hard to make choices based on just nutrition when you're still so stuck in diet mentality. Like, you really are trying to lose weight, you're just pretending like you're not, or you really are hungry, but you're like, oh, whatever, let me just ignore it because I can, because you're really trying to lose weight. Once you get all that stuff down, it's much easier to think, okay, feta cheese salad is not my favorite food, but all that there is here is French fries, and I really want French fries, but I'm probably not going to feel good, or I might be getting a higher nutritional value from the salad with tuna or eggs than just eating the French fries. Then you're making a choice based on not just nutrition and not just satisfaction, not just hunger and fullness. Then you can make decisions based on a lot of different things, and not to make it so difficult. And so I don't want you to obsess about this. This is not meant for you to obsess about. It's for you to like learn the principles, try to practice them, go slowly, start with little goals as you go. And I think that it's obviously okay to pick a food based on just nutrition, but I think that it's not going to serve you so well, because then what's going to happen is you might not have your satisfaction from your food and then pick the other food anyways. So the point is that all foods fit. I think it's just important to know why you're eating what you're eating, and make the choice from a place of choice, right? Like when I was on a diet, I would think in my head, okay, today I'm going to have yogurt, and I'm going to have whole wheat bread with tuna, and I'm going to have just fruit, right? And then I would come to my friend's house and just end up eating 3 slices of pizza and feel totally out of it. There's nothing wrong with eating pizza. It just doesn't feel good when you don't feel like you're making a choice. Even if you walk into a room and you're like, oh, the pizza looks really good, and I was going to have a salad, but like, it looks really good, and I think it's going to feel really good in my body, and I need way more calories than just a salad, because I'm not going to be able to eat for 5 hours, or like the salad is totally making me nauseous. And that's great too. It's just when you feel like, that feeling where you're just like, oh my gosh, just eat it, and like push down the guilt and like try not to think about it, and then you do it, and then you feel so out of control, and then you're like, I'm never eating pizza again, and then you do eat pizza again, and then you eat too much and you feel sick, and then you're like totally going back and forth. The point is that you want to feel calm and comfortable with food, and the satisfaction factor is really, really, really important. Health, gentle nutrition is also really important, but remember, those two you have to learn to practice those things together. So for another thing that you could think of in terms of the health benefits, you could think like, if let's say, like, I always give this example, I really like whole wheat everything. I like whole wheat pasta, I like whole wheat bread, I like whole wheat flour, and some people don't, so that doesn't apply to them. So I think in my head, I'm going to get more nutritional bang for my buck if I can eat whole wheat. Sometimes I can't, and this is like a freedom thing for me, that when I go to a restaurant and I ask, do you have whole wheat pasta, do you have whole wheat bread, do you have whole wheat pizza, and I'm already there and everybody's ordering, I'm okay with the white flour. I'm not as afraid. It's still hard for me. I still have to work on it, because there was all those years where I didn't let myself eat white flour, and it's still like something that pops into my head. But now I just feel so relieved that I don't have to worry about that stuff, because all foods can fit. I could even think about tomorrow, how am I going to get my whole grains in? Or like, it's you don't have to have whole grains all the time. Does it have higher fiber? Does it have more of the B vitamins? Yeah, it does, but it's okay, because your health is not based on one meal. That's not the way health works. I know that we all kind of think it does, like, oh, I had a healthy meal, now I'm healthy. Your picture of health is everything related to your health. It's the way that you eat, and the way that you move, and the way that you sleep, and the way you manage stress. And if you are stressed about the way that you're eating, that's also affecting your health, right? So these things all have to be in tandem and in balance, and they have to be practiced. They can't just be like, oh, now I'm practicing satisfaction, I'm going to eat whatever I want because that's what Gila said, right? That's where I think that's where intuitive eating gets really, really misconstrued. And the question of how does intuitive eating help with affect the emotional satisfaction derived from food? So it's all the things that I just said. It's like if you're able to eat without guilt, if you're able to eat the foods that you actually really like, if you're able to eat in an environment that's conducive to calm, all those things are going to affect your physical satisfaction and your emotional satisfaction. So I think just in general, when you practice intuitive eating, which is not just eat whatever you want, you will get much more satisfaction from your eating. So that's all I'm going to say tonight. If anybody wants to ask me any questions, you can. This live is going to be saved on okclarity.com and also on my page, gila.glassberg.intuitiverd. And I hope to be coming on next week and continuing with the intuitive eating principles. So please, please, please send in your questions. Have a good night.